All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need your attention for a moment, please. I need your attention. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out for this evening's debate between Mayor Judith Flanagan Kennedy and Senator Thomas McGee. Now, this year in Lynn is a big year. We do have a mayoral race. It doesn't happen every 2 years like everything else. It's a 4-year term. So it's very important to see who's going to be leading our city for the next 4 years. Now, I think we have two very capable candidates here, but it's up to you to make that choice. Now, they're giving you the opportunity to hear what they have to say that's going to improve your life and the life of the people in this city and their children as well. They're making big decisions, and it's going to impact your life as well as your family's lives. So we have an opportunity this evening to choose our mayor for the next 4 years. They're going to give you as much information as possible and help you make an informed choice of who's going to be your new leader. This evening's format is going to be 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. There will be 4 questions posed by the panel. One of our question askers will be former NAACP President Joanna Morris. Former NAACP President Mr. Jesse T. Potter. Former NAACP Secretary and Treasurer Ms. Gail Randalls, and timekeeper. Raise your hand, Gail. And the final 2 questions will be posed by me, Darryl Murkison, your moderator. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question with a 1-minute rebuttal if necessary. It will be alternating. We're going to start with, actually I have a basket over there. So we'll choose to see who goes first out of that basket. After those questions are asked, we'll go into the questions from the audience. There will be 3 questions chosen from the audience, something that you may want to ask these candidates that affects your life. They're reaching out to people, their constituency, to give you an opportunity to ask them something directly. So again, there's someone going around with index cards. If you want to ask a question, have an opportunity to ask a question, please fill one out. After those questions are asked, they will have 2-minute closing statements, and we will adjourn for the evening. Again, the ground rules are no personal attacks and no inappropriate questions. If anything is deemed inappropriate or personal, I will stop you. All right? Let's be respectful to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear. I'll try to speak loudly. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the Community Brotherhood for putting this debate on. This is the 6th of 6 debates. We've had a chance to go around the city, not only during these debates, but I think more importantly over the last 6 or 7 or 8 months, talking about the issues that are important to the community, talking about what this city is all about. And we really have a great community. When you look at the resources in the city of Lynn, starting with our waterfront, our downtown, a spectacular 2,200 acres of woodlands, the 2nd largest in the country that's owned by a community, our golf course, but more importantly, our neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods reflect not only our diversity, but the strength of this community. And I think being here tonight at the Community Brotherhood is a key part of what not only would call a neighborhood, but part of our community. And the real strength of this city is the people that live in this community. People have always looked to the city of Lynn to come here, to have a chance to find a job, buy a house, or find a place to live, raise their family, and have a good life. And we've all made a decision to come to this community and call ourselves Lynners. And so it's important as we talk about this election, as we look forward to where we are today and where we can be tomorrow as a community, recognizing that in 2029, it's 400 years since the city of Lynn is established. How can we draw on that rich history? How can we take advantage of all of the talent we have in this community to recognize that this city is in a good place, but we can definitely do better. We can go to a place that we can all have a city that we believe in, a city that we can work together to make better. So I'm excited about the opportunity being here tonight, and I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Can I just ask, is the bell at 30 seconds or is the bell at 2 minutes? Which?
30 seconds left, and then the second bell is when your time.
Okay, so the first bell means wrapped up. Okay, thank you, everybody. As most of you know, I'm Judy Kennedy. I've been the mayor for 8 years. I think a lot has happened in the last 8 years, so I'm going to use my opening statement to give you some of the highlights. We've built a new Thurgood Marshall Middle School. We've built a new market basket that created 381 new jobs on the former GE site that had been undeveloped since the 1980s. I brought Kettle Cuisine to Lynn, bringing over 250 jobs to the Lynnway. Revitalized and air-conditioned the Lynn Auditorium, allowing for the expansion of yearly events from 2 to 3 events in 2009 to a target of 60 in 2017. I created a tax work-off program for homeowners over the age of 60, modernized Wyoma Square streets and the parking lot, doubling the number of spaces and increasing revenue substantially. I instituted the reverse 911 emergency notification system, provided free large trash and single-stream recycling toters to every resident, resulting in a tripling of our recycling rate since 2010. Attracted new downtown restaurants, such as Rossetti, R.F. O'Sullivan's, and Demici's, purchased a new engine, tower truck, ladder truck, and ambulance for the fire department, increased minority representation on city boards and commissions, installed ball field lights at many of Lynn's parks, installed splash pads at Flax Pond, Kiley, and Neptune Boulevard parks, erected Lynn's first wind turbine, redeveloped 23 Central Square into the vault with 49 new market rate housing units, stabilized the residential tax rate, presided over a 23% increase in home values from 2010 to the present, put all major city contracts out for bid, and I'm hoping we'll be able to talk more about these as the night goes on. Thank you very much to the Community Brotherhood for having us, and to you for coming.
As mayor of Lynn, will you aid and provide a roadmap of sorts that would guide prospective African American and cultural entrepreneurship into starting and sustaining a business? African Americans want to be included in revitalization of Lynn. That's the question.
That will be for Mayor Kennedy to start.
Thank you.
Well, I've worked really hard in the past 8 years to be inclusive of everybody here in the community, and that knows no boundaries, whether it's in City Hall, whether it's in events that we have, whether it's in the downtown area. If you look at the murals, they feature people from all walks of life, not just from any particular community. They are representative of a lot of different businesses, a lot of different cultures. We have the very first full-time cultural district director in the downtown. And one of the reasons why we have that director is to make sure that we're inclusive of everybody within the downtown. We don't design most of those programs. Those are designed by individual nonprofits, but they are open and welcome to everybody who wants to participate in them. The same thing goes for the businesses that are choosing to locate downtown and the restaurants that are choosing to locate downtown. The EDIC and our Economic Community Development Office are there to assist anybody and everybody who will continue to make downtown Lynn as diverse a place as we can possibly have. And I think we've gone a long way toward getting the diversity going compared to what it has been. It has been very much underused, first of all. So the first step, I think, is in getting people to come back to the downtown, which we have done, and now to expand on that population that is coming downtown. I do believe it's inclusive of everybody, and I hope to see that trend continue.
Thank you. I think it's a great question, and as I've had a chance to camp around, we do have opportunity and we do have potential, but I think the potential continues to be unfulfilled. And if you look at not only our waterfront, our downtown, but more importantly the neighborhoods throughout this community, as I've had a chance to campaign around the community, I do feel in some respects there are somewhat disconnects between some of the neighborhoods and some of the opportunity that we see, I think, really together as Lynners. So the key will be making sure that there's complete communication, that community groups like the Community Brotherhood, the Latino Business Association, the business leaders that have created opportunity on the downtown on Union Street, and I think the point's well taken in terms of the Chronicle. It does show a lot of great things here, but I think it didn't really address some of the businesses that have been created, and more importantly, the businesses related to the communities of color, the African American community, as well as the Latino community that have happened, and that can continue to happen if we work together to build a more broad and open discussion about how we can all benefit by the potential that we see in the city. I had a discussion with some of the business leaders that have open businesses on Union Street that are part of the Latino community. And they talked about 25 or 26 or 27 years ago that the downtown area was really, in some respects, a dead zone. It had been a great and vibrant community, and that downtown area had really diminished. Well, what's happened over that period of time is many small businesses have come into the community, have made the investments, have created businesses that are, 15, 12, 15, almost 20 years of businesses that are sitting there. We need to engage those businesses and those people in the community that want to engage with us and have that open communication to ensure that people feel welcomed and open to what's going on in City Hall, but more importantly, welcomed to ensure that their ideas for enhancing or creating businesses are part of this broader plan and potential that I think we see in the city together.
Good evening. The second question is regarding education. The student population of Lynn Public Schools is in excess of 15,299, over 50% of which are students of color. There are approximately 1,774 teachers, and less than 15% of those teachers are people of color. Do you believe that our students should have a faculty that is more reflective of them? And do you think that it is important for those students to have teachers who look like them?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely. I think not only should the workforce in the school department reflect the students that really make up the large amount of the students that are in the school system. And it's interesting when you look at 15,000 plus. In early 2000, there was over 15,000 students, so it is in some ways cyclical, but we have a growing population, a growing community of color population. And it really is important that those students feel connected to the teachers that are working with them within the schools. And so I absolutely agree that we need to expand that opportunity. And when you're looking at whether it be in the schools or after school programs or the things that kids look to create what they see as reach their potential, it's something that they can connect to. And it's teachers that reflect who they are and what they believe in, so you can draw on that experience that they have. So it is, I think, it's a challenge when you don't have the makeup of the workforce that reflects what the community's makeup is. So it's a great question. I think we need to really, the goal is to move forward to ensure that those teachers and the school department that continues to grow and deals with the current population, a diverse population, a population that reflects numerous nationalities. I think 25 to 30 different languages are spoken in the Lynn schools, that reality of what our school system is supported by a school department that recognizes that and can bring the kind of diverse leaders and teachers into the community that allow all of the students to feel, one, welcomed, and just as importantly, so they can feel connected to a school department that strives to make sure that every student has the opportunity to reach their full potential. So I absolutely agree. We need to continue to work towards enhancing and expanding our workforce that reflects the makeup of the city of Lynn.
I absolutely agree with that statement and with that goal of having more diverse hiring within the school department. I'm hoping we get to a question about hiring at City Hall, because I look forward to talking about that aspect of it. With respect to the hiring within the schools, we did an evaluation of the superintendent a couple of years ago, Kathy Latham. I generally gave her very high marks. There was one area in which I gave her the lowest mark of any of the other areas, and that was in her outreach to communities of color to get leadership, to get teachers, principals, administrators into the school system that more accurately reflected the student population within the school system. So I sent that message loud and clear to the superintendent. That was something that Lynn needed to work on. And in fact, under my administration, I am proud to say that we now have our very first black superintendent, deputy superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Tutwiler. He's a very visible presence around the Lynn Public School system. I think it's great for our students to be able to see somebody in a position of power who looks like them and to whom they can relate. We still have work to do, that's clear. We are about in line with other gateway communities who have a similar demographic makeup, but as I said, I recognize that and I pointed it out on the superintendent's evaluation, and I do think that progress is being made in that regard.
I just want to allow a little time for rebuttal right here. I had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Latham, the superintendent of schools, myself, and I'm really happy to hear the answers from both of these candidates, that they are looking forward to helping and reaching out to try to get more teachers of color into the school system and be more reflective of the students that are there. Dr. Latham agrees with that wholeheartedly. And she asked me a question, what can we do as an African-American community to aid them in their assistance of trying to get more African-American teachers and teachers of color? And I assured her that we're going to work very closely with her to make that happen. So again, my question for both Senator McGee and Mayor Kennedy, with a 30-second rebuttal, do you have any specific ideas on how we can do more outreach to recruit more African-American teachers or just teachers of color for the Lynn Public School System? We're going to start with Senator McGee. 30 seconds.
Well, thank you, and I think it's a great point, Darrell. The key is working with people in the community that can help us reach the goals we're trying to establish in terms of creating a workforce that reflects the community. So it is important, I think, as those jobs are available, but more importantly, as we continue to look at that workforce, that everyone in the community feels welcomed and comfortable enough to reach out to us to understand that it is a two-way street. It's an opportunity for us to set the goals, but just as importantly, to work with the community to help us establish and meet those goals, whether it be working to find the talented people in the city that want to become a part of that opportunity, and so we need to work together to make that happen.
Mayor Kennedy. Thank you, Senator.
Well, if I were in a position of looking to expand the talent pool from which I was hiring, I would go to the Leslie College Career Placement Center. I would go to the Salem State University Career Placement Center and simply say that Lynn is looking actively to diversify its teacher population, and if any of those any of the college students, in other words, master's degree candidates or CHGS candidates within those schools were looking for an opportunity to come to Lynn.
All right, thank you very much for that, both Senator McGee and Mayor Kennedy. Let me just add this before we move on to our next question. I think we have a responsibility as African American and people of color to aid them in that assistance to try to get people here that more reflect the students that we have. And part of the solution that I'm putting forward, again, I've mentioned it to the superintendent, is that we have over 100 historically black colleges and universities all over the United States. And many of them are studying education, and they're looking for jobs every single year. So we need to expand our reach to recruit actively, not just in our local schools, which like Salem State is a great teacher school, and we have many others here in the state of Massachusetts. But if they can't fulfill our needs, we need to reach out beyond our borders to those other institutions. Thank you. This next question is regarding housing. Lynn is a working class city with a median income of roughly $40,000 $7,429 per year. That's about 20% of the population was considered below the poverty line. With the development of Lower Washington Street, Sagamore Hill, Mount Vernon Street 24, the Vault and Exchange lofts, many residents have concerns about the city being over-gentrified and unaffordable for working class families. Right now, an average single bedroom apartment is about $1,300 per month in the city of Lynn. Should residents be concerned about being priced out of our great city? Is it being over-gentrified? And where does it end?
That's a lot to answer in 2 minutes. First of all, the Lower Washington Gateway North residences, which I supported the construction of and actually signed off on some documents in order to make the financing possible for that, contains 71 units. Of those units, 8 are market rate. The other 63 are either workforce housing or lower income housing. So I think that that's a very, very good addition of 63 affordable units into the city's housing mix. However, the City of Lynn, by the RKG Associates report that was done last year in 2016, says that Lynn has 22.9% of its housing as affordable housing. And in order to sustain our economic base, we have to have a mix. We are far in excess of the 10% goal that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts sets for its communities. So I would be more than willing to go ahead and say we need more affordable housing if I saw places like Swampscott, Nahant, Peabody, Salem stepping up to do their share of this. It should not always fall on the City of Lynn to have all of the affordable housing in the area, or the bulk of the affordable housing in the area, and to have to sustain through our budget and through our taxes collected the number of people who are here. So, yeah, I don't think we should be forcing developers to develop anything that they are not looking to develop. We are never going to become overly gentrified. We're the largest urban center on the North Shore. We've always been a community of many cultures, and we will continue to be that way.
Senator McGee.
Thank you. If you look at that RKG report, I think one of the numbers that really was a powerful number, 50% of the people that live in the city of Lynn pay over 30% of their income towards housing. That's 50%. So the reality is, yes, we absolutely need market rate housing, but we need to create a plan that makes sense for this community. So it's not about what we have in terms of the number on affordable housing. It's the reality of people being forced out of the community that are currently either owning or renting and are starting to see themselves priced out of the city of Lynn. This isn't a challenge the city of Lynn faces. It's a challenge we face in the Commonwealth. Boston is facing the challenge. Salem and Peabody are facing the challenge. People are being forced to other communities. So we need to, one, as we're creating development opportunities, I think the Gateway project on Washington Street is a great plan for that. But what Boston is doing in terms of creating a market rate housing and knowing that affordable housing needs to be a part of that so that we can continue to create opportunity for the people that live here to live in affordable, safe, and housing we can be proud of. So we need to make sure that we put the right plan in place and not just create market rate housing, but put a plan in place that as we develop housing, we recognize the challenges that people in the city of Lynn face in struggling to ensure that they can stay in this community. I've lived here 61 years. Many in this room have lived a long time, and as I've campaigned around the district and listened to people, people are talking about being forced out of the city. And where are they going? They're going to Methuen, they're going to Nashua, they're being forced from a place that we all love and want to be a part of. So we need to create a plan that makes sense, bring the value into the community with market rate, but recognize that we need to have a piece of that to continue to find ways to create affordable housing. We hear it all the time. My colleagues in the legislature understand that one of the number one challenges people face is facing housing they can afford and feel good about living in. And we need to make sure that all of those pieces are part of our plan as we move forward.
We're going to offer each candidate 1 minute to rebut.
John F. Kennedy once said, "A rising tide lifts all boats," and that's really where our focus should be, and it has been during my administration, is to work on educating people so that they can get good paying jobs. I've been a huge supporter of the E-Team. Do you know that skilled machinists in this area can make about $90,000 annually in salary? The Workforce Investment Board. Let's get people educated. Let's get people trained. Let's give them the potential to make more income so that they are not stuck with what they can afford in terms of housing, but what they choose in terms of their housing. That's really the way to solve the problem of housing unaffordability, is to get people educated so they can get the jobs, so they can afford the housing that they want and need.
Again, I think it's part of the larger plan, and I've supported the E-Team Machinist program. In fact, we've been able to get that money for 20 years from the legislature. Over 500 people have been able to get jobs that are good paying with benefits. But we need to put a plan in place that understands creating the value, market rate, looking at low income as a piece of that, and just as importantly, looking at our waterfront and the development opportunities in the community to create jobs, to create commercial development that creates jobs in this community. 92% of our tax base is residential, 8% is commercial. So as part of this discussion about where we go, how do we create opportunities, it's also making sure that the plan that we have in place when we create housing creates mixed-use developments, creates commercial opportunities to create those jobs so that those people that are in the community can find those jobs. And then if we had a housing plan that recognizes value, Kings Lynn is a perfect example, low, middle, and high income. It should be a model for what we do moving forward. Lynn was a pioneer in doing that. We are a national model in terms of how it worked in Kings Lynn. I think we can do it again when we talk about increasing development in the city of Lynn.
Okay, my question is on public safety. One of the barometers of measuring the desired livability of a city and the overall quality of life is how safe the people feel in low instances of violence, crime that exist in our community. Lynn is what we might call an urban suburb, or close to becoming a bedroom community. It's a city of 92,000 plus permanent residents, which has several thousand more transient residents. We're very diverse, and our culture is needed, and we have many concerns. The diversity ranges from Pine Road to Summer Street in West Lynn to Essex Street and to the Buchanan Circle in East Lynn. Last year, Lynn had 12 murders, while one is too many for the residents here in Lynn. I think the sheriff and the chief of police has been working with ECHO, Essex County Community Organization, as well as, and met with him last week. Oh, I'm sorry. You know my mouth is big. Don't get me started. The sheriff and the police chief have met with Essex County Community Organization, ECHO, as well as other groups in the city of Lynn to address issues of concern of violence in our city. So our question is, what is your plan to make Lynn safe for all of its residents, regardless of their ward or their street address?
It's a number of things that we need to do. I think first we need to recognize that based on our current fiscal situation in the city of Lynn, which at this point we're looking at about an $8.5 million deficit. That reflects from a report that was earlier this year came out reflecting that we really have a challenge to balance our budget. Our expenses are outpacing our revenue. We were downgraded, bond rating was downgraded late last year based on our ongoing problems related to our operating budget. The people that work for the city, public safety as well as city services, have substantially been reduced over the last several years. Less police, less fire, less DPW and others, without any indication that we're going to be able to bring those people back to the street. We don't have community policing or the bike patrols that we've had in the past. But more importantly, I think we need to look to the neighborhoods and to work with us, recognizing the fiscal challenges we face, and that's an issue we need to face together and find a way to stabilize our budget so we can bring the resources to bear that we need for public safety. But working with different neighborhood groups to really reinstitute the crime watch activities that we've done in the past. Stop the Violence is really a growing operation where it's really as a grassroots piece where people are coming together, young people in particular, and starting to try and take the streets back. Working with ROCA to address some of the real challenges that people face related to violence that's happened. Working with the youth workers, Antonio Gutierrez, which is now on Union Street, and trying to create those kind of connections in the community. So it's trying to find the resources, stabilize our budget, get public safety officers back on the street, and just as importantly, as a community coming together, neighborhood to neighborhood, to understand we need to work together to ensure that we're not going to stand for violence in this community, and it's up to us together to come together, neighborhood to neighborhood, working with all of us in this room, but more importantly, as you said, from Pine Road to the waterfront, to really take our city back and work together to make it happen.
First of all, the report that referenced the $8.9 million deficit projected that number in April of 2017. If you look at the city's budget that is posted on the city's website, and I was the first mayor to post the budgets for the school department and the city on the city's website, you'll see it's about $4 million. Nonetheless, we are in a deficit situation. I was the mayor who brought back the community policing and the bike patrols when I assumed office. The fact of the matter is that our school budget, the mandated school spending, has gone from $107 million when I took office in 2010 to $144 million today, due to the tremendous increase in our student population. That's a growth in that budget of over 3% a year. The city's income, the revenues that we receive, only grows by about 1.8 to 2% a year. So all of the money that comes in is mostly being diverted into the school department, and as a result, we've seen a reduction in the number of police and in the number of firefighters in the city. I do have a grant that I applied for. The deadline for applying was July 10th. We would get 9 new police officers under that grant. I'm still waiting to hear whether we've been approved for it. The grant would cover 75% of the cost of those police officers in the beginning, and gradually we would undertake to keep the rest of the money that would have to be paid out for them. And with regard to the murders, true, that is an anomalous number. We've had experts opine on it, and they say it's an anomaly for this particular year. And not to diminish the homicide numbers, absolutely not. The other crime rates are actually down in the city, so I do respect and appreciate the tremendous job that our police officers and our fire personnel do for the city.
30 seconds, rebuttal.
I'd just like to make a point particularly on the school financing. The state funding that's come from the state has gone from $115 million in 2010 to $160 million directly related to funding the schools. So understanding that we've had increased school population, but the state has continued to step up, increase at least $4 million to $5 million a year. The least amount is $4 million. So we are challenged on the budget side, but the reality is I think we need to, like I said earlier, take a look at a broad recognition of the challenges we face on our budget, stabilize that budget, and come together as a community to find the resources and the communication to take on what I think people feel. I'm hearing it as I walk around the city. People are feeling that public safety is an issue that we need to address, and we need to address it together.
It doesn't matter if the state gave us $500 million, because the bottom line is the state says, Lynn, you must contribute this amount of money, and that number has gone up in excess of 3% every year for the last 8 years that I've been in office.
All right, thank you. Our last panel question before we take questions from the audience. I'm going to ask, this is in regard to minority hiring here in the city of Lynn. City or municipal jobs are often thought of as the backbone and the foundation of any city. These jobs are respectable, good paying, and viewed as honorable positions in society. That is why they are so desirable by many people. For generations, these positions have allowed hardworking, good people to build a happy and productive life for them and their families. For many years, these positions were exclusively for a select group of people. Many places have embraced a climate of post-racial society, and they espouse the rhetoric of inclusion, and all racism is behind us. For a better overall society, we need that inclusion, but we don't see that here in Lynn. This is a particular concern to the African American community, because we as a whole just don't see that taking place in Lynn. If you walk through City Hall, in many of its departments, you won't see many African Americans. You may see one black female. You may see one black male, not more than that. If you look at our police department, 170 strong, there are 6 African Americans on the police department. If you look at our fire department, 205, you will see the same thing. There are 8 black firefighters. I say again, when it comes to hiring African Americans for municipal jobs, we just don't see it. Where is the inclusion for us? What will the mayor of the city of Lynn do to make a significant, and I emphasize significant, change in these clearly exclusionary hiring practices when it comes to African Americans and other people of color?
When I sat in this very room in 2009, when I was challenging Mayor Clancy for the position, I was asked if I would call for a minority hiring list for the police department. And I said I would, and I did in 2010. I don't know if some of those people left the force, but I called for a minority hiring list. I will tell you about the job lottery that we hold for our young people. It's a lottery now, because when I became mayor in 2010, you know how people got the jobs? It was who you knew. You had to be the neighbor of somebody. I said, we can't do this anymore. So now all the names go into a big drum, and we have male and we have female. We don't have black and white and Latino. We have male and female because we have to split up, for example, the park kids. But it is all done by lottery, and that gives tremendous opportunity to new people. I have had the first district chief of color appointed under my watch in the fire department with District Chief Stephen Archer. He's fantastic. I just hired a new animal control officer who is also black. I appointed Pat Barton. I don't know if that was funny, but one of my first actions was to take Pat Barton, who was the first person of color to serve on the liquor license board, I think, but most certainly the first black female to serve on that board. I have done, with Latinos, I've appointed Miguel Funes to that board, Jimmy Gonzalez to the Parks Commission, Magnolia Contreras to EDIC, Manny Alcantara was the first Latino to head one of the city's departments, Israel Gonzalez, a lieutenant in the fire prevention in the fire department. I've worked hard. It takes time, but I am trying to make those changes and be inclusive in Lynn City Hall and beyond.
I think the mayor laid out some of the things that are important, the lottery, making sure that everyone has a real opportunity. I think you asked a question earlier, Darrell, and I think it really is a challenge for all of us together, is ensuring that when the jobs are open, people understand the jobs are available, working to ensure that quality candidates understand they're available, and then they apply for those jobs, working with the community, and I think it really is an ongoing discussion between both the electeds and the community, as well as the community, about who are those that want to be police officers, who want to be fire department employees who want to join the force. So how do we work together to ensure not only that we have a lottery and we've developed a plan that makes sense, but to ensure that people within the community know that the jobs are available, they apply for the jobs, and we work together to find a solution to what isn't an ongoing problem, to start to show and reflect on the forces that you mentioned, but just as importantly in City Hall, that those faces reflect the makeup of the city. And I think it needs to be a partnership. And there's a lot of quality people in this community, and I think recognizing the young people that are here, there's a lot of classical students that are working on the campaigns this cycle. There's a lot of talent in this community. Do they understand that those opportunities are there for them? And how do we ensure that they work with us to grab those opportunities? So the mayor has laid out, I think, a pretty good plan about creating a lottery, trying to engage people in the community, but we obviously need to do more to make that a reality. And I think it is, opening the communication up even more and working together to find that the candidates that we know are talented candidates apply for those jobs, have opportunities for those jobs, and fill those jobs that make a difference for the communities of color in the city of Lynn. So I look for that ongoing discussion as we move forward.
30 seconds, rebuttal, 30 seconds.
I just named half a dozen or so people that I've appointed, actual names of actual people who live among us here in the city of Lynn. In 23 years in the state legislature, I do not know how many people of color the senator has hired. I tried to find it out by Freedom of Information. It is not available. So I'd just like the senator to take these last 30 seconds and name us some names of people of color who have been hired to assist in his office for the last 23 years.
So I know that the mayor knows my staff because we work closely together, so saying whether there's a person you know or don't know. The question is, I have a small staff. I have all women. I have one man and all women on my staff. My chief of staff is a woman. When I first got elected, I had an immigrant who spoke fluent Russian who worked for me. I was also chair of the Democratic Party, and I had a small staff, but I had an African American and a Latino as part of that staff. Many of you have been at the conventions. I ran conventions that were completely diverse. The leaders that were women of color, Latinos, were part of that. What I did as a chair of the Democratic Party, and if you look at my work as a Democratic chairman, it reflects the rich diversity of the Commonwealth. I'm proud of my record, and I stand by the people that I've worked with and the people that I've brought together to make this state and this community better.
I'd just like to quickly rebut on both of those particular comments. I think that Mayor Kennedy has done an admirable job of trying to advance some hiring for African Americans. And I guess her record does speak for itself. And Senator McGee's just outlined to you what he's done in terms of hiring minorities and women and his staff as senator. But my answer to both of them at this particular point in time, it makes me go back to my college days, actually. I remember taking a course, and it was like debating. And when a question was posed like that, I would, you might ask a question, and then the professor would stop you and ask you the exact same question again, because you didn't answer the question. So, again, I'm saying that if you remember the statistics I just put out there, we're not saying that there's no African American people that exist in either one of their staffs or within, they've made the efforts to do so. We're saying the numbers that we're dealing with are abysmal, and we need to do better. We need to do better. When we have a police force of 170 people, and you have only 6 African Americans on there, we need to do better. If we have a fire department of 210 people, and you have 8 African Americans, we need to do better. So again, I understand the encumbrances that we have, and this is not a new road for us. And most of the time, people will say we don't have enough qualified candidates. People don't know about taking the test, and we do have some. We have civil service law we have to abide by,
and I say that's a good thing. And veterans go to the top of the list, and I say that's a good thing. But at the same time, we know that that's law, but there's been many laws. There have been many laws over the course of time in our history. And we found that those laws are not working. We need to change those laws to make them more beneficial and more fair to all people. Thank you.
So the question came from the audience, and it is addressed to Senator McGee. The question is, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of becoming a sanctuary city?
So,
I'll get 2 minutes.
But let me just say this. The questions that we are choosing from this box, even though you may direct them at one particular person, that same question, we want both of them to answer. We don't
Okay.
want to, all right? The same question is posed to both of them.
Thank you.
Do you want to repeat?
no, I
Okay.
think I get the question. Well, it's definitely an issue people are continuing to talk about. And when you talk about sanctuary city, the reality is that the title sanctuary city has no legal standing. The real question is, what is the type of policy that you can establish in the community to ensure that everyone feels safe, that we work with the chief of police and the public safety officers to ensure everyone in this community feels safe, that those that are committing crimes are being focused on, arrested and prosecuted, and that people in the community, whether they're documented or not documented, and there's many in this community that fit both of those titles, that they feel safe enough if they're being preyed upon by criminals, that they will call the police, and that they know the police are going to do their job, which is to address the public safety issue. Immigration law is a federal reality. It's up to the federal government to enforce immigration law in this city. In fact, the Lynn police don't have any legal responsibility to be doing immigration law. What we need to be doing with our local officials is creating the right policy to ensure that we are all safe. And it's not about calling what Lynn is what a title is, but more importantly, to ensure that everybody that lives here has an opportunity to feel safe in their homes, safe from crime, and to make sure that everyone is safe in the community. And that is what we're talking about here. So I think we need to continue to work on a policy that's already been created in this community that recognizes that people that are undocumented are safe to call the police, and the police have worked closely with different members of the community to ensure that they are willing to call the police when they're being victimized by crime, that they're not going to be worried about what their immigration status is, but more importantly, that the crimes that are being committed by whoever that might be are focused on, that those criminals are arrested, prosecuted, and deported if necessary. So it's about us coming together as a community and establishing the policy that works for every citizen in the city of Lynn.
Excuse me. I'm just getting over a cold. And the senator's getting one. I don't think there's a nexus there. Anyway, a few years ago, we were having an issue in the Guatemalan community. Many of the people from Guatemala who live here in Lynn are undocumented. And as a result, they don't have bank accounts. They get paid in cash. And their payday was usually on Friday. And we had a rash of muggings, purse snatching, wallet grabbing, whatever you want to call it, with many of our Guatemalan residents as victims of that. And the police department got wind of it. And we got together with the city officials, with the Guatemalan community, and with the police department heads to bring everybody together to explain to people that when your wallet is taken, you are a victim of a crime, and we want to know about that crime so we can go out and get the people who are responsible for perpetrating that crime. The city of Lynn does not care whether people are documented or undocumented as far as the police department goes. They are far too busy to worry about checking people's status. However, with respect to being a sanctuary city, I believe in the hierarchy of law. Federal law supersedes state, state supersedes local. I am not going to interfere with federal authorities doing their job in the city of Lynn, and therefore I would be against designating Lynn as a sanctuary city.
Senator Gee, would you like to rebut, or do you want to move on? Move on. Next question.
We're having a little trouble reading this one.
My glasses down.
My eyes are really good.
Move on, man.
Player kneeling to some is disrespecting the flag. Do you think accepting help from a foreign foe is also disrespecting the flag and Constitution? What are your views?
Let me just say this.
I know. I think it has to do with
This
the
would
rough
fall
dossier.
in the category of really not applicable to what we're doing here this evening. It's another discussion that we do plan on having, but not tonight.
That's for Kennedy. We're gonna ask that. How many times?
Need my eyes down?
I have this one.
Okay.
This particular question just will probably just pertain to Mayor Kennedy. So we'll have to balance that out at another time. All right. How many times have you raised taxes in the past 10 years? And what was the money used for?
Okay. When I took office, the tax rate from the 8 years prior to my taking office had gone, it had almost doubled. It had been around 8.5 per thousand when I took office, and it was up to about 15.3 or something like that at the beginning of my term. Currently, it is at 15.6. So the tax rate has actually stabilized. The reason why taxes have gone up is because home values have gone up. As I stated in my opening statement, the average single-family home value has gone up 23% in the last 7 years. That's why the taxes are going up. But the actual tax rate has actually been very stable. Where the money has gone, the budgets are available to any member of the public. It has been really, as I said before, most of the increases have been driven by the increase in the school department budget, going from 107 to 144 million dollars. We've also had a tremendous increase in the cost of health care, which has gone from about 25 million when I took office to about 50 million today, and that's just simply the cost of doing business here in Lynn. But you can see we've been fiscally responsible here in the city. We've built a new middle school. We've improved roads. We have spent the money wisely and well, I believe.
In this day and age, with so many of our children being subjected to an immense amount of screen time, aside from the development of the new YMCA, what other ideas and plans do you have to provide more physical activities for our youths?
But that's a fair question. Yeah, you start that one, I guess.
Thank you. So I guess it's about physical education. I think it's a great question, and I think it links to a couple of things that I've worked on over the years, and I think it's after school and out of school time programming. I think the point is that students are using these more than they're interacting with people. So it's a number of things. It's creating more opportunities for school, after school and out of school time programming, whether it be the YMCA, Girls Inc. There's so many different programs in the city of Lynn, but there aren't enough programs to meet the needs of the community. And that's not only in Lynn, that's around the Commonwealth. So, you know, as I've been a leader over the years on after school opportunities, it's creating the partnerships that make a difference. And the other piece we need to look at is how do we create physical education within the schools. I filed legislation to go back to what we used to be, K through 12, that would create mandatory physical education, recognizing it's a challenge financially, but creating mandatory physical education with a time both for K through 8 and K through 7, and then 8 through 12, so that every day students would have access to physical activity. Can that happen within the current school setup? Probably not going to happen. But the reality is we need to have an ongoing discussion. So how do we expand opportunity for after-school programming? How do we incorporate both some of the things that aren't happening in the schools, whether it be arts or physical education? How do we expand that? How do we work with the providers in the community to build partnerships? And this is what has been consistently recommended, partnerships between nonprofits and public facilities, particularly the schools, so that we can enhance the opportunity for after-school and out-of-school time programming, including arts, but just as importantly, looking to ensure that kids have access to quality physical education. I know up at the Pickering Middle School, there's what's called Play 60. It's an NFL program. They created a play space up there that they could utilize during recess time. Those are the kind of ideas, outside the box things that I think we need to do together to find a way to make sure kids have access to the kind of physical activity that really engages and enhances their ability to learn.
I can cross Play 60 off my notes that I wrote. What? Play 60. We have to get kids out and about. One of the things that really showed me how important it is to have our parks usable for our children, and not just usable until it gets dark, was when I had a bunch of parents come to me. Their kids practiced Pop Warner at Barry Park, and they said during the fall, by the time the kids get out of school and they get over to the park, it's dark and they don't have enough time to play. So they told me what the parents would do is bring all of their cars and shine the headlights on the kids' practice field so the kids could get a little more practice time in. And it was after I heard from them that I said we really have to start improving the lighting at the playground so the kids have a longer time to play and a safer place to play as it gets dark. So we installed those lights at Barry Park. We also installed lights for the Little League at Wyoma Square, at Lynn Woods for the girls softball. There are splash pads now in 3 different sections of the city. The basketball courts at Kylie were completely redone. The tennis courts at Breed and at Magnolia were completely redone. There's a pickleball court. I don't know what pickleball is, but people like pickleball, and it's over at Playground. Those are just a small number of the examples that we have used to make the parks more attractive, to make the kids go out and get some exercise and play. And I'm hoping to continue. The next bond that we have also has a number of additional park improvements that we hope to implement.
All right, we have one last question for the audience. Jamie, come on.
So, my question is quick. There's a lot about talk about how diversity, what you have done for it. No. What do you plan to do to diversify City Hall and our public safety agencies, city jobs, if elected mayor?
As I said, having the lottery system, calling for the minority hiring list, I would have no problem with calling for another hiring list. Giving people of color and people from other cultures a voice on our boards and commissions, and places not just of employment, but places of power and decision-making within city, whether it's in the fire department, over at the DPW. My track record speaks for itself, I believe.
Senator McGee, 30 seconds.
Again, I think it's building stronger relationships with the communities of color, the people in this community that feel maybe a little bit disconnected, and working together to find the opportunities to build those options, and making sure everyone understands the jobs are available, that working with us, building those means of communication between the communities in the city, working through the neighborhoods, working together to ensure that we continue to find a way together to build that kind of a workforce that reflects the city of Lynn.
That is the last question of the evening. That concludes our candidates' night and mayoral debate for this evening. Could you please give these two fine candidates a round of applause, please? I'd like to thank Mayor Kennedy and Senator McGee for participating this evening and giving their constituents an opportunity to make an educated, informed decision on Election Day on Tuesday.
7th of November.
It will be the 7th of November. We do have closing statements for people that want to hear that. Closing statements. Closing statements.
We'll be really quick, because I guess there's like some game 9 in baseball or something tonight, and people might want to get to that, but I just, first of all, I want to say go Houston Astros. If we're going to get beaten, let's get beaten by the best.
All right, folks, please. We've had a great night. I just ask for your indulgence for 5 more minutes. That's it, all right? 5 minutes, please.
Once again, I want to thank all of you for coming out and really being a good, attentive audience. It's so much easier to do these forums and debates when we know that everybody is listening to our answers. And I think you've been a wonderful audience, and I can speak for myself, but I think the senator would agree. We truly appreciate your concern about matters that affect the city of Lynn. That was kind of fast. Can I just say, re-elect Judy Kennedy mayor on the website, 101 list of accomplishments, 599 Judy. Leave your contact information if you want us to send it out to you. And thank you again to the Brotherhood for hosting us tonight.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for your interest. You know, this is a really important election, and what I'd like to see is, if we really want to make a difference in this community, it's about people being engaged in the process. The last 2 races for mayor have been about a 30% turnout, and I'd be willing to bet if you look back farther than that, that reflects the reality of what happens in local elections. We need to for our voices to be heard, for your voices to be heard, you need to be part of the process. So I urge you to get out, vote in this election, continue to follow what's going on. There's 6 days left. You've had a chance to hear both of these candidates, and you've heard a lot of great candidates running for other offices. Be a part of the process. Being a part of the process means that your voice will be heard. Instead of having 30% turnout, I'd love to see 50, 60% turnout like we see in presidential elections, because that would mean people in this community coming together to understand that at the local level is where we can really make a difference in this community. I ask for your vote on November 7th. I believe I bring the leadership that will bring this city forward, but please be a part of the process. Be a part of the solution. Thank you for being here tonight.